I'm having issues with the internet connection. I want to do a live demo of the tool here for you. Okay, so today I bring two things for you. And there are two perspectives on gamification for the learning and teaching. The first one is how we can use quizzes as a way to present theoretical concepts, for example, and present some concrete tasks that students can do. And this may focus the way they study. The second one is about the use of storytelling, and in particular with artificial intelligence to progress, to give focus on the progression of the student as well. And in particular here we are trying to integrate that with code defenders, so it's more on the way we put together the practical level, and at the same time here we're dealing with learning and teaching theory and learning and teaching the practical sense of the topic. So as a motivation, quizzes can actually be quite good as motivation tools to capture the attention of the students in class, for example. They also foster participation because the students become active in answering these quizzes. But also another way we are exploring this is to support the students themselves in the study when they are alone outside of the class, to test their own knowledge and see what they know or that they really don't know. And since if we want to use this and defend this as a practice, we also have a tool that reduces the effort of you as educators to set up this kind of practices in class. So there are two types of uses of the quizzes. One is Inclass. So in class, you can use that, for example, to introduce a new topic. I'm going to give you an example later. Or just to capture the attention of the students in the beginning of the lecture. Or in the end of the lecture to summarize the topic that you're discussing, for example, okay? You can also use that to evaluate the students, of course. But if it's being used outside class, then the tool is more about for the student to review what you learned, also to assess the knowledge or the lack of knowledge they have on the topic. And can also be a tool for them to prepare for the evaluation or study the topics. And we want to highlight this a bit because this is the direction we are aiming in the tool, is that with this we actually promote the self-regulation of learning, okay? In a bit of the flipped classroom paradigm. And to see as well if they can actually learn by answering questions, learn more theoretical concepts. And the idea is that we put them, just after they read or they get some information about the topic, make them work with that, answer questions immediately after or in their own time, but at least do and practice this course and this question and answers as a tool to motivate that. So these are my personal experience with using quizzes. They are not for software engineering, but when I taught the HCI, so Human-Computer Interaction course, usually in the beginning of the lecture, I applied a quiz with the topics from the previous lecture. And this was interesting for them. First, for me to realize what are the gaps, so things they really didn't get from the previous lecture, so I could start the new lecture by actually reinforcing or clarifying things, so I can build the new lecture on that. And they also realized that maybe they didn't really remember things and they didn't get things quite clear, so it was actually important for them as well. So it was kind of a way to capture attention and establish some common grounds that I could work with them in class. In game design, I actually introduced this as to raise the topic how much they don't know about the type of games, so the category of games and what is a typical gamer in the market. Because if you ask them, typically they say, oh, they are young people, they are male, and this is not right. So the average is about 35 years old and so on. So through a quiz, we can show them that they don't know what they are talking about. It's quite interesting. So we get to introduce the topic in a very interesting way, and I capture the attention because they realize, whoa, I'm wrong. So as a general idea, we pick up this on this project as a way to share the experience, our own experience, and unfortunately to invite you to share your own experience with this as well, but create also content that you can use. We can reuse ourselves and we are reusing it, but we can share it and reuse among the community. In the goal of actually enhance the learning for the students, of course, in particular for them to be more self-aware of what they know or don't know. And of course, we want to reduce the effort on running all this. And that was already highlighted in the previous presentations, that running this can come with a burden. So we firstly tried to build something with Kahoot. I don't know if you know, Kahoot is an interesting tool that you can run for creating some quizzes. And the ones I did, actually, the examples I did were run on Kahoot. And we did create something that you can check there. But I don't want to stress much on it, because the philosophy of Kahoot is not really reusing stuff. It's just creating something that works for that moment and just forget about it. So you cannot reuse questions. So questions are not a first object in that sense. And they also have a very limited character. So the type of questions that you can create are quite limited. Okay. And that's why we develop our own tool. And actually it's open source, and actually invite you to contribute if you want as well. So the tool has been already populated with lots of questions that we had from 10 years of experience in teaching software architecture in the Instituto Superior Técnico, so University of Lisbon. So it has more than 600 questions and more than 100 quizzes. And those are quizzes that come from I can actually show this, that were run in so simple mini tests, we call it mini tests, that were run 4 or 5 times in the semester for the students to assess, and actually for the teachers themselves to assess how the education was going. And so we had that information and we just compile it and put it in the system. So it has already lots of things that you can work on, although the topics are quite focused on software architecture. So you probably would need to build your own stuff. So what can you actually do in the system is shown here. So you have questions. That's the main object here. So you can create new questions, check the questions that are there, edit it, change it, and you can use them in quizzes. Okay, they can be organized in topics. The idea is that the questions by themselves cannot be used, but you just put them in collections of quizzes, and then the quizzes themselves are presented to the students. What we have here new, and I think this is something we're still working on, but we call it assessments. I'm not sure if it's the best name so far, but this is a tool that we prepare a set of topics for the student, and then the student can generate their own quizzes regarding those topics. Okay, so you can, at home, they can just reply to randomly generated, not totally random, but generated quizzes for him to test the knowledge and to help them study. We can import, export things. We have a few things for students, although the shared version is not that rich here because we are integrated that with the student management system at the university. So I will try to make a demo later on, but this is the view that we have on questions. You have a list of questions, you can edit the question, edit topics, and I just want to highlight something that we can compute and we're actually using a lot, since we had data from the 10 years before. So we can check if the answers have been used in quizzes and actually been answered by students, and we can estimate the difficulty. In this case, means that it's kind of half, which means that half of the students fail in this question, and half of the students actually get it. The value of 1 is actually all of them fail, miss. So this is measure the difficulty. And then we can set up quizzes or lists of things. You can see that actually these have been answered by the students, so they're actually being run. The assessments, you can create assessments. For that, you just create a set of topics that you want to be discussed in that assessment, and you get a list of questions that are there. I hope to demo this later on. I just have this because I'm not sure if the internet is actually working well. So now I'm showing the view that the students can get. Okay, and the demo, you can play the two roles, although in a installation in university, you can separate the two and have your own login system, authentication system on that. The version that I'm going to share with you, it's free. Both students and teachers can actually have the two perspectives. But what I want to highlight here is you can create, these are the 3 assessments that are in the system, and you can generate quizzes that you can answer. Okay, and just get something like this. Oh, no, sorry, something like this. And then you can just reply and see the results. You can also see all the quizzes that were prepared specifically by the student and choose one to reply. And they can be open or closed for certain periods if you want to manage that. So they can always be there in the system, or you can just give a deadline. And actually, one way to motivate the students is actually assign a deadline. So you have 2 weeks to answer these 3 or 4 quizzes. Okay, so the students can get this information. This is bad because this was me trying to play with it. I guess I don't know much about it, so get only 5% of correct answers. But you have an overview of what you're doing. And we are currently testing this in the software architecture course run by my colleague. And it's a course, master course with 57 students. And what they do is they have, through the semester, 5 different quizzes. And they are mandatory, okay? And they have 5 questions. And they are done in the end of the class. So it is a lecture, explains the theory, and then in the end presents a quiz that the students need to answer about the 2 or 3 past lectures, okay? And the system can also generate the new questions for the students. So I just want you to pay some attention here, and particularly see, so this is the list of students, this is randomized for you, but we see that most of them, and this is live data, so this has been running now, the semester is still not over, and they actually perform, so the students' quizzes are the ones they generate by themselves. So this seems that it actually is working a lot. So they answer more quizzes that are actually self-generated by the system than the ones that are generated by the teacher. Of course, they still also perform the ones that are generated by the teacher. So that's why we think this is a good way to motivate and to pursue the tool. We have some preliminary results, but I cannot really say this is, it's not necessarily significant. We cannot claim much about this, but we have data from the past 10 years. And overall, I mean, they perform okay on the tests, but we had, in the last year, 26% of negative scores. We kind of reduced this year, but we cannot claim much. But say, okay, at least they are using the quizzes, and maybe this has some effect, something we're going to study. And now let's see if I can run this. Hopefully, yes. I'm having a few issues. So you have these questions here, and for example, you can create a new question. Okay, good. And can be, well, into architecture, and you can write something, say, well, is software testing important? Okay, just write the options here. Well, yes. And this is the correct one, and no, and so on, okay? I'm not really, you can save that. I'm not really going to do much, but this is a typical thing. So these questions are always close answers, so you can, it's the way that you get them automatically generated and graded. So you can create this, and then what you can do is generate quizzes with this. So these are actually the live quizzes, the quizzes that Antonio, the guy that is teaching, created for the students. They're all available for the students now. We can see a summary of that. So that's the thing they typically reply. So it's supposed to be 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes exercise. We can edit one. And you can search for new things here, like, I don't know, scenarios. Whoops. And here you see the questions that are available, and you get some information about this. So the difficulty, actually now they are changing. This is being changed at the moment, so they are changing the units, but this means that 80% of the students fail this one, and it's actually somewhat reliable. You have 100 answers here, and you can just, well, can still see that in a very clean way. You can check this, which is the correct one, and you can add it to the quiz. Okay, and this is the, oops, yeah. Now we have 6 questions on the quiz, and this always shows the list of things that you are available for you to reuse. Just search and save. Okay. So for the assessments, it's just adding sets of things. I can also edit this. Sets of topics, and then these show in the system what are the questions that are actually available for those topics. If you select a set of topics and you get 0 results here, means you need to create new questions in the system. But here you just generate things like, I want my students to talk about software architecture, testing, and so on. And then in the students' view, they'll have this. So they can see the available, and they can actually answer one of them. Just randomly selecting this. Okay, quiz. Yes. I managed to, fail. Get to right, not so bad. And then you can generate new ones, and this is what I think it's interesting for us. So let's generate a new quiz with 10 questions regarding that topic. And this is self-driven by the student. And well, I can just go this again. Well, it doesn't really matter that much, but let's end the quiz. And then I can see my stats. So in this version, it's session-based, so this is the thing I did. So I solved 2 quizzes and actually have a better performance than before. But so you get an idea what you're doing. Okay, so moving on. So you can, so I leave you with the link. You should go there, check, try to create your own questions, quizzes, see if you can use it, and please share your experience with us. So it's live, it's in the project's website as well, but this presentation will be shared. I think you can try to use it. Okay, this is one way to try to gamify the teaching experience, right? The other way is using storytelling to, well, convey a story and give some meaning to the students' action. So first question you can have is, why storytelling? Why is storytelling interesting for learning? And the general comment is that it's good to give a good flavor to the experience. In the particular stronger point is you can give concrete meaning to actions that students are doing. That's why games like Code Defenders can work, because you have, suddenly you are having some meaning, some goal, concrete goal that you're trying to achieve with a meaningful objective. It does also support the flow of progression. So the story can actually tell you where to go and why you should go further in the experience. So you want to know more. You want to eventually know who is the bad guy in the story, or actually kill him. It depends on the storytelling. But this is a drive that keeps the players engaged. And the main point is that stories can actually improve the engagement of students with the task. Okay? The second question is really why artificial intelligence then? Because you can do that without the artificial intelligence. But if you want to support interactivity, and this is actually crucial in games, then you need some kind of way to adapt to the player's actions and options, right? And also you can use that, and this is one thing that we bring with our tools, the characters can actually be more believable in the emotional sense because they actually react to the things the player are doing and not in a predefined way. So what we are doing now, it's bringing to the co-defenders that you just play with in a few minutes ago. I think you didn't mention the puzzle mode, right? Did you?
Yeah, I did.
You did, okay. So there's a puzzle mode, which means there is it's single player. So a student can, at home, or at least in class, play it alone. And we're picking up on that because it's easier to convey a story with just one player character. And then the AI character in that game will be a narrator. So it's not really a character that's performing actions in the game. It's not playing the game, but it's giving the flavor in the sense, narrating what's happening, telling telling or actually complaining with the player, so talking to the player. And he actually introduced me in missions to the player. So there's a set of challenges that the code defenders bring to the player. In the beginning, the character will just tell a story about why the player should do that. Who is attacking? Who is the guy that is actually creating mutations? And it can be like, it was commented before, it can be a security type of, actually our suggestion is to have it a security kind of threat. So the player, the AI here can have two different roles. First is to tell an episodic story in the sense in between these puzzles, tell a bit about the story. So introduce the new puzzle, what's going to happen and why. And it actually can use a double perspective. We are actually playing with it, so it can be an attacker. If you're the defender, you can actually take the role of the attacker and tell you something or trying to mess up with you, or the other way around. And we also have the opportunity to have within puzzles interaction with this kind of a macro narrative where here the character can comment on what the player is doing in the level. For example, if it made a successful test or not, it failed to create a mutation, the character can interact and intervene and give either some motivation or try to engage the drive for the player to continue. And we have integrated that with the tool. If you don't notice where it is, it's here. So we do have a text box where the character can actually talk to the player. So introduce some sentences. And this is the way we feel that the storytelling is well integrated in the game. So you don't need much, because most of the interaction should be here. We just want this to happen, and we make sure that the players actually notice that. But that's going to be a kind of a monologue. The player does not need to talk back, but should be aware of someone. There's an entity there is telling part of the story and reacting to the things that the player is doing. Okay. How do we do that? We have a tool that's been built from previous projects. We changed it a bit to become a web service to facilitate integration. And cannot go into much details about this, but you can ask me later. But it's a complex cognitive architecture for agents where you have emotional appraisal, emotion decision making, knowledge basis, autobiographic memory, social importance rules, and so on. What is most important, it is actually a toolkit where you have tools that you can edit the content. That's why we think it's relevant for this, because we have tools like this, where you can add the text that the characters can say, and a set of rules when the text is going to be triggered and sent to the code defenders. So we have a very light integration, which is actually quite good for both parts. So we do have an HTTP connection between the two things. And the idea is that the code defenders show the character, so present the dialogue to the player, and send the game state to this tool. And then all the reasoning and the decision on what to say and when is done in the Fatima server. So we are on the process of creating a story for this. The technical integration is done. And we have exploring this flavor for the story, so this synapse. So you are the player is a white hat hacker, and you know there's someone, a black unknown hacker is trying to break a system, and you need to prevent that. So it goes along with the comment that was said before to the code defenders. It feels that this is the right narrative for the game. Then we can create some enigma here. For example, you want to find out who is the black hacker as well, or prevent that your own identity is being compromised. So we can play a bit with this, and it does not necessarily need to be related to the actions in the game, but will keep the players trying to progress and go to the end of the puzzle, which is what we want. Okay. Okay, that's what I have for you now. So you can check the web page. I leave you these two links, especially the quizzes demo that we want you to try out. And yeah, please, I'm open for questions. Thank you. And send me an email. I did it, yeah.
For the quiz, it's view and beautify.
So the question was, what was the front-end technology that was used? Yeah. Because it looks good. It depends. The users might disagree a bit, but we use the view and beautify for showing to show the contents of a database. So everything is in the database, and the queries are being displayed by the view. Although we are in phases of still working on the usability of that. So it's being run, it's being used by teachers and students, but actually the feature work, I didn't talk much about the feature work, because improving usability is one, and have more people using the tool is another, and actually create a compelling story and work with you to choose the correct set of puzzles that should be storyfied, let's say. Something we want to do with you. And then run some examples of code defenders, workshops with code defenders, with and without story, and see what could be the impact of that. Any more questions? So thank you. Just try the tool, please, and let us know what you think. Okay, thank you.
So this was just the last presentation of today's seminar. I want to thank you for participating in this seminar. I hope that you learn a lot, and you, for sure, if you have any doubt, please just contact me, and I will just, if I can answer you directly, I will do. If not, then I redirect the email to the specific partner. Hopefully, if you also have any kind of idea of or want to use one of the tools that we have shown today, just please talk with us, because now we're almost finishing the decision of the piloting for the project. So it will be nice to have an external partner to test some of our tools. That's it. I want also to thank you, the Madrid Network, for hosting us this seminar. And have a nice evening, although a bit cloudy and wet. So.